Hi everyone. Today we're checking in with our England Volkers Yachting president Justin from Florida, where he's in the middle of preparations for the upcoming Miami Boat Show, while I'm joining from the England Volkers Beverly Hills shop. Justin, can you give us an insight into how the preparations are going and where you are right now?
Absolutely. So right now, everything's kind of come to a stop. We do have some rain that's unfortunate, but otherwise, these are the first days of setting up the Miami Boat Show. What you see behind me right now would typically be a series of different yachts. They have all been cleared out. We are starting to see the temporary dockage come in. There's going to be nonstop work, though, basically from now until the boat show. We're the first boat in. In fact, they're actually kind of building this super yacht section around us, which is pretty cool. But over the next couple of days, this background behind me is going to completely change. And come February 11th, it will be full of 100,000 people walking around and checking out over 1,000 different boats.
That's super exciting. And since you're in Florida right now, this feels like a good moment to start at the beginning of your personal journey. You are a Florida boy, born and raised on the Gulf Coast, in a place where most people are transplants. What did you like about growing up in Florida, and how has it contributed to your overall success?
Yeah, for sure. So I am Florida grown. I would say that the way it's contributed to my success overall is just that I understand the lifestyle and I understand the area. You know, where I happen to be right now on the east coast of Florida is really thought of as the epicenter of yachting. You know, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, they are just synonymous for yachting and being on the water. And so I think having grown up in that environment, having grown up on the water, I think it has really allowed me to connect with the industry in ways that maybe had I not had that experience, I just wouldn't be as prepared. I wouldn't be able to speak from a personal place of passion, knowledge, and background if I didn't have those experiences. But I think, too, it also has kind of pushed me in that direction. I don't think I would be here right now if it wasn't for those early years where that happened.
As you just said, you were lucky to start boating at a very young age, and you have owned boats on both coasts. Do you have any specific advice you could give to new and experienced boaters from other places that are experiencing the Florida boating life for the first time?
Yeah, for sure. I would say, you know, if someone is a new boater in general, and they're in Florida, to be careful. We do have a lot of really busy waterways. There's a lot of things that can change quickly. And, you know, I've had personal friends. I've seen a lot of instances where someone has gone out in conditions that they shouldn't go out. And when kind of asked, you know, hey, what happened? The rationale I think that a lot of people use is, well, I saw someone else out there, so I thought it was safe for me. And they went out in conditions that were not appropriate for their vessel. And so I think that understanding that everybody has a different level of knowledge and experience, I think that really does help. Personally, where I boat, there's a lot of shallow waterways. You've got a lot of sandbars. And so also paying attention to the boats that are ahead of you, the boats that are around you. You know, how did they get there? How did they get through? If they're a similar class of boat, then it's going to be a little bit safer for you to take that same type of route. So definitely talk with locals who are knowledgeable. If you're in a new area, watch what others are doing, but then also understand that those others who are doing those things might have different experience or might be prepared differently for those situations.
I'm very curious if you still remember your very first job and if there's anything you can take away from that experience that still resonates with you today.
Okay. Yeah. So my very first job, it was not on the water. It was not related to boat specifically, but it was very close to water. So we're going to go back a little ways and we're going to talk about Polaroid cameras. Those are those cameras where when you take a photo, it shoots out that instant photo. And it you shake it for a minute and the photo just kind of magically appears. And this was a time where if you were on vacation, you didn't have a cell phone to pull out. You didn't just get to quickly take a photo with your cell phone, and you didn't have digital cameras so much. So you relied on these little drugstore yellow cameras that you'd like twist and wind, take a photo. A couple of weeks later, it gets developed. And so for my 10th birthday, which happens to be over the summer, and growing up, I lived on a 7-mile island key off the west coast of Florida. So it was very beachy, very tropical, very vacation-y. There's not a lot of full-time residents, actually. And so having been at the age of 10 and getting this Polaroid camera, I had the idea of grabbing a friend on the weekend, every weekend after school, days where we didn't have school, whatever the case was. And whatever friend was available, we would go down to the beach, and we had these signs that we would make, like a whiteboard marker and a poster board. And it would say beach photos, $2. And we would just walk up and down the beach, and we would sell these $2 photos that probably were not that great of photos because we were like 10 years old at the time in elementary school. And it was a good experience though. And so I think what I would take from that is that at no point did we sit down and say, how much money could we make? Because we could have certainly charged more than $5, or actually $2. I'm sorry, could have charged more than $2. And we know that because we got tips that were $20 sometimes. But I think what we focused on was, and what worked in our favor was the experience. So the experience was, you've got these two little kids that are walking down the beach. They've got a very homemade system of doing photography, and the customer got something from it. They got the photo and they got the experience. And I think that if we could track down some of those customers and say, hey, do you remember, 20 plus years ago when two kids walked by you on the beach and you gave them a couple bucks for a photo? They probably took that photo and they had this memorabilia of their time on the beach with their friends. They showed it to their friends. But I bet part of the story for so many of those was this unique experience that they got from it. This kind of like humorous aspect to 10-year-olds having a beach photography business. And so I think if we take that and we put that into business today and we say, what does a customer get? Not how much do we charge? Not, what does this do for me? Not make the transaction about us, but make the transaction about the customer's experience. I really do believe that everything else falls into place. And those customers, they probably shared their story with other potential customers. And while my beach photography business is not still in business, it closed 2 years later because everyone started getting little flip phones with cameras and, digital cameras. Thanks a lot for that. I think that there would be a blooming business there because you have that experience, you have that story. And the best customer you can have is the customer who had a good experience and tells everyone. The worst customer is the exact opposite.
Yeah, I think you can take a lot away from that experience. And I think that might be a business idea for today again, considering how popular Polaroid cameras are.
Yeah, they came back.
They are back in style. Moving on from your very first job to your previous career, prior to entering the boat brokerage industry, that doesn't seem to have much in common with selling boats, your previous career. Could you go into what you were doing and why you chose to leave it for boat brokerage, and if there's any ways in which the two connect?
Sure. So my previous careers have been actually in technology-based businesses, and the clientele, the customers that we dealt with were completely different. We focused on enterprise level services, whether they were for private or government entities. And so I don't think we can directly take a lot of our processes, our procedures, our marketing, our approaches, and apply it to luxury sales. It's not the same. But I do think that at the end of the day, things like the customer's experience, that still does matter. I also think too, knowledge, preparedness to really deliver that service. These were contracts that would be negotiated over a great amount of time. And so you really had to do your due diligence. It wasn't just, sure, I can help you, shake a hand and make it happen. You had to think all the way through the transaction. You had to think, who do I need to bring in? What do I need to do to make this a successful experience for everyone? And so I think we can still take that to luxury real estate, luxury yachting, whatever it is that we're selling to the direct end consumer. I think that if we are able to bring in the right people, bring in the right resources, plan ahead, have a game plan for how we're going to deliver on what it is we say we're going to do, I do think that those elements do relate to our business still, even though the processes, procedures, and everything else looks completely different.
I'm wondering, what do you think sets inland brokers apart from other boat brokerages?
I like that question. I would say the brand. I think I was reading recently that we just ended 2025 as a global brand and globally by doing 1.3 billion euros in commission. The size of our brand exceeds 1,000 locations. It exceeds 1,600 advisors. 16,000 advisors globally in 35 different countries. The resources that you can bring to a transaction when you're sitting there with a seller and you're explaining what you're going to do. When you say, I'm going to reach out to our office in Dubai, I'm going to reach out to our team in Greece, our team in Italy, there is a reaction on the customer's face. There is this like aha moment that I'm not dealing with a small company. I'm dealing with a company that has the resources to find the right buyer, to connect the two parties together, to make this happen, to stand by what we say we're going to do, and to be there tomorrow. And I think those things really matter. And the brand delivers that and so much more to our customers.
Speaking of Engel & Volkers as a global brand, can you share any specific experiences that you've had where you thought, wow, it is incredibly global?
Yeah, actually, just as recently as yesterday. So yesterday I was in Sarasota, Florida, and we had a summit going on. It's called the Engel & Volkers Epic Summit, and it's put on by the local real estate shop in Sarasota, Suncoast. And we had the honor of Yachting being one of the sponsors next to Real Estate Corporate and some other great partners in the industry. And during the session, which was led by private office advisors and licensed partners, the topic was referrals. And, how do we get referrals from all over the world? How do we act on those referrals? How do we handle referrals? Everything referral based. And referrals, you have to be a brand that has that global presence. You have to be a brand that can connect everyone to really produce the type of referrals we do. And so we've got this great setup in the lobby of the hotel. We've got the background where you can take photos with, and it's got the logo on repeat. We've got a registration booth with our logo on it. And this woman's walking by the hotel. She's walking down the sidewalk. And when she looked in, I guess she saw all of the Engel & Volkers logos kind of showing up in the window as she's looking through the window. And so she comes in the hotel and she walks up to the two people that were at the registration desk. And she goes, "What are you guys doing here?" And so they were kind of confused. And they're like, "Oh, we're doing, an event." And as they spoke to her, they realized what she actually meant was, "What are you doing in Sarasota, Florida?" It seemed like a very random place for what she thought was a brand from Europe. And so she went on to explain that she actually purchased 10 years ago a condo in Mallorca from Engel & Volkers. And she remembered the brand very well. She still talks to the advisor that helped her purchase that condo in Mallorca. And so she had this very, very odd reaction when she's walking down Sarasota, Florida, and happens to see that brand. And what was really interesting about that is it meant so much to her that she actually took a photo in front of our logo and she sent it to the advisor that she worked with 10 years ago. Instances like that, and they're not small, they're not isolated. Ever since joining this brand a year ago, when my friends, family, previous colleagues, whatever it is, whenever they're traveling and they come across an Engel & Volkers shop, they almost all without fail, they take a photo of the shop and they send it to me. They don't give me context. They don't say, "Hey, I'm in, Wyoming," or they don't say, "I'm in Greece," or "I'm in Dubai." They just send the shop photo. And there is this connection with the brand. And I talk to others and they have that same experience with their friends where they get these photos and they have this reaction. But people, I don't think, see the Engel & Volkers brand globally as a business. They don't see it as, oh, they sell real estate, they sell yachts, they're in aviation, they're in hospitality. I think they see it more as like a label almost. And it's interesting to see where so many people have just sort of come across our shops when they've had that experience in their life that has prompted them to send us the photos.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that experience. And being from Germany, I obviously grew up with a lot of Engel & Volkers shops around me. But ever since joining Engel & Volkers, I think it's extra special to see the offices all around the world. And my mom also always sends me photos when she stumbles upon a shop.
I love that.
But I agree with you that the people and collaborative aspects make the business special. We definitely have a very amazing team of advisors, but you are no longer actively participating in sales. Still, you are very much involved in all aspects of operations. So what are some of the ways that you support your team that you feel gives the customer and client an experience tailored to their needs?
Yeah, there is a bittersweetness to that. And sales is something that I'm very passionate about. It's something that I actually enjoy doing. And I am thankful that we do not have a team that requires micromanaging. I am very thankful that we are not a company that embraces that structure. And then it's not warranted. We have an amazing team of professionals. So in some ways, while I'm sad that I don't have to do the sales role, I'm also very happy that I don't have to do the sales role because I know they are. And the ways that I do think I can be helpful would be adding as a resource, being a sounding board, I think is number one. If a transaction is going to go sideways, let's catch that early in advance. Let's pull in the people that we need, whether it's myself, whether it's some of my colleagues, whether it's someone outside the organization. Let's bring those resources to the table, make that available to the advisor. And sometimes it will start with me. Sometimes it'll be myself giving the customer a call, as a second person who is there to support everyone in the transaction. Sometimes it's a matter of just saying good job. I know we've got a couple advisors who every time they send out an offer or every time they get back a listing agreement signed, I'll get a notice along with the rest of our team. And actually, I always forward that. And I always say, good job, good luck. And I think sometimes it's just more noise in an inbox. But I do know there's a couple of advisors who have told me that it is kind of like that extra pat on the back that just pushes them to call the seller even quicker and say, hey, sign it. Like, I know someone's watching, but they're watching in a way to say congratulations, not watching in a way to say, why didn't this get done? And so I think that has allowed me to be involved and interact in a positive way.
We definitely appreciate you and your leadership. And then now moving on to our last question, powerboater or sailboater?
Oh, that is a very controversial question. This one's going to get me in trouble. So I am a powerboater. I certainly respect sailboaters, but I do value my time. I value getting from point A to point B. Sailboaters kind of sometimes have to go to point C to get to point B. And that is just too inconvenient for me. So I will probably for the rest of life always be a powerboater. I love having sailboater friends, but I am a powerboater.
Justin, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today, especially during such a busy and rainy day in Miami. We appreciate your insights and perspective, and we look forward to seeing how Engel & Volker's Yachting continues to grow under your direction. If you'd like to connect with Justin or learn more about Engel & Volker's Yachting, you can visit our website at evyachtfails.com.